Hello, everyone. We're continuing our replay series with an episode that is so powerful. It could literally change the world. You'll hear Kaylee talk about this and Jayanne as well in the episode. But if women could actually feel and process their rage, this world would be a completely different place. We often conflate rage with violence, hatred, but rage does not have to be that. Rage can be sacred. And in this episode, it is incredibly practical. We not only go over what is sacred rage, how can rage be sacred, first of all, what does that term even mean? But we give you the how. How can you do this yourself without hurting others, without making it violent, and with working it into your busy schedule, because we know this can be hard to take time for. We give you strategies for yourself, and we share our own experiences with sacred rage and how it has alchemized our lives, our emotions for the better. Originally, when this episode aired about 6 months ago in February, Mars was in retrograde in Cancer. And we took a lot of time during this episode to talk about Mars and to talk about that retrograde. But I thought instead of including that in the episode, I would give you an update of the astrology and what we're experiencing right now when you're listening to this episode. Because instead of Mars being in Cancer, we now have Jupiter, the exact opposite of Mars, a benefic, tracing his path across Cancer, as well as Venus. In fact, Jupiter is in his exaltation point, meaning he is in the highest and best place for him in the zodiac at 15 degrees of Cancer. And I wanted you all to think about what happened 6 months ago. Maybe you were experiencing strife, emotional upheaval, difficulty with family relationships, mother wounds, and maybe disconnection from your tribe. And what now has been healed over the past 6 months? And maybe just in the past couple of weeks, there probably has been a lot of healing. And though I know many of you are still probably feeling the heaviness and going through a lot right now, I would like you to think about what has been healed, what has been changed as we go through this new eclipse season that's coming up. We will end our replay series in just one more week. And when we come back on September 8th, we will talk about the upcoming eclipses in September in detail. So if you're feeling not that healing from Jupiter and Venus, but feeling more of the intensity building up, you're probably feeling the eclipse coming on. And it is a call for you to move forward, to figure out how are you going to move forward? How are you going to let go? And how are you going to heal at this time? I hope you can see how you have changed in the past 6 months, what things you have overcome, and see how the energy is completely different now than it was in February. But I love that we're doing this episode now because these are beautiful bookends so that we can see what it's like when we have Mars, a malefic in Cancer, and what the energy is like when we have a benefic exalted in Cancer. I hope you're enjoying the rest of your summer and getting some relief. And if you're not, then this episode is perfect because you probably got some sacred rage to release. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy Podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, Jayanne Behringer, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for. Welcome to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. I am Jayanne, and I'm here with my lovely co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Say hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here. I mean, obviously, you'd always be here, but it's so good to be back together again, chatting about fun stuff after lots of wonderful interviews. And today, though, we're going to talk about something really exciting. We're going to talk about sacred rage. And what does that have to do with our everyday lives? What does that have to do with femininity? And why do we care about Mars in all of this, too? So, just to kind of kick us off, I wanted to ask everybody, where is Mars in your chart and how do you relate to Mars?
I can go first. So my Mars is in Capricorn and in the second house, but it's also intercepted. So I have a little bit of an interesting relationship with my Mars where I don't necessarily get at its energy in an expected way. It can be hard for me to start projects, and it can also be like, here's the idea, bam, let's start. Let's do the thing. Let's bring it to completion and let's do it now. And for me, I almost connect more with Mars energy through my palace that's in Aries and in the fifth house. And so there's palace in a lot of ways is like feminine Mars energy. And so for me, there's very much this like, okay, let's create things and let's just do it. And let's just do it now. And I'm kind of like that when it comes to having children. And I'm kind of like that when it comes to creating art. And I'm definitely like that when, well, in business things as well, to a certain extent. It's like once the passion is there, it's like explosion, let's do the thing. But it can fizzle out. That Mars energy can sometimes fizzle out a little bit. And then I have to get grounded again. And I think that comes back to the Capricorn, getting grounded in that physical reality. And just recognize like, okay, is this thing that I started, is it something that I want to complete because it's going to lay a good foundation for later on? Or is it something that was fun and now maybe it's time to be done? So that's how I relate to my Mars placement in kind of a roundabout way.
Just for our listeners, can you clarify what intercepted means and tell us, like, not so much about Palace, like not crazy amounts, because I will do a whole episode on her, but just sort of a one sentence overview.
Yeah, definitely. So when you have an interception, it means that there's a pair of signs that it's like the energy doesn't flow into a house. It's kind of like it's landlocked. And so you don't necessarily have as easy access or as natural access to that energy. It doesn't mean you don't have the energy. It means that you're going to have to forge your own way to connecting with it. And so if you look at your chart and you look at the house cusps or the entrances to each house and you see a sign that doesn't cross any of those, that's an intercepted sign. And they always come in pairs. Whatever sign's directly opposite from it would also be intercepted. And then Pallas, she's like the wise warrior. She has a lot of intensity like Mars, and she will fight, but she's more strategic and creative, more intentional, I guess you could say, than Mars energy tends to be. Mars energy is a little bit more like ready, fire, aim. It's done. Well,
Jan, I was going to make you go next and talk about it and talk about you because you always have to go last.
That's so great. Thank you. So my Mars is also in Capricorn and my Mars is in the 12th house. So one time Kaylee did a reading for me and she said Mars in the 12th house is not great for, like, it just feels like lack of motivation or like inaccessible of motivation. And it's very true. Like it's sometimes it's even when it's on, right? Because Mars in Capricorn is like Energizer Bunny attitude, like just go, 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 go. Like I'm giving myself the energy to do it. And then I'm also giving myself all of the like tools to do it. And it's all good, go, 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 go. But then it just like drops off because I'm in the 12th house and it's like, where did it all go? So I kind of relate to it. My motivation is like a mountain in the clouds and I only am in the tops of the mountains. And so I can't always see how long I have motivation or how far the bottom is to my lack of motivation, but I can trust that it's always going to come back eventually. And part of my journey with that is to like allow. And so I think that's going to tie in a lot with what we're going to talk about today with Mars retrograde and whatever else we're going to say with sacred rage. But in general, Mars itself is like the motivator. It's about survival. It's about war, like getting stuff done at all costs. So just kind of like Haley said, that ready, fire, aim energy, like get it done. And then also we will say this a lot more later too. It's about playfulness and like just being yourself, being in your body. So that way you're not like overthinking stuff that is not Mars energy. Overthinking, it's not at all. So that's what Mars means to me. Julie, it's your turn.
Yeah, Mars doesn't think, he just does, right? Like he just does stuff. And also, he's connected to our sexual energy as well and how we show up in that sense. And so that's an important piece as well of him. And it's so funny because I was looking at the three of us and I was like, look at us all with our glasses on. And also look at how we all have Earth, Mars, like Mars and these Earth signs, because my Mars is in Virgo. And actually, my Mars is not aspected by anything. It's not aspected by 5 degrees. You have to go to like 10 degrees to get my Mars to be aspected by anything, which is really fascinating. It's in the 11th house, which is the house of hopes and dreams. It's the clubhouse, right? It's, where we find our friendships and also our network and where we reach out and things like that. So
That's
it
so
can
perfect
be.
for you, Julie.
Is that perfect for me?
That's so perfect. Even the work that you do behind the scenes for the podcast and the school, like all this connecting and just accomplishing stuff that I'm like, how the heck did you do that? How did you get that person to come on the podcast? What? So yeah, I apologize for interrupting you, but that's so perfect.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. In Placidus, I've also got Jupiter in my 11th house too. Not in whole sign, but in Placidus, Jupiter is in my 11th, and I've always kind of contributed like my ability to reach out to my network and like be a connector to that. But Mars is help because, and this is the reason why. So for people listening, Mars is often talked about as a malefic. So he is like the bad boy of the zodiac. And he, kind of can be irritating. He can, push on us because he's related to things like, war and conflict and things like that. But he's also our motivation and are those things that help us get going. And so when I say he can be positive in your chart, and in my 11th house, I have felt like he is positive, and the 11th house is a more positive house anyway. So he's in like a better placement, and he helps me to reach out to networks and to do things with people and want to do things with people. As far as Virgo goes, that's more of my organizing energy. That's like my energy where I love to organize events. I love to, put things in place with people. It's also my healing energy, right? Like I love to help people heal. I love to learn about the body. And I started my whole career in this like research space where I was learning about science and being very science focused and logic focused, which is also the law part of me. But the interesting thing for people who don't know, unaspected planet is one where it's not connected to any other planets, which means like it doesn't have any planets close to it, which is called conjunct. It doesn't have any planets at a square or any angles that would connect them together. So he's just standing by himself doing his own thing right there. And I feel like sometimes that energy can make me feel a little bit like I'm doing it alone or I'm lonely. Or like I have to shoulder everything. I've got to do it myself, even though I'm in this like house of networks. Like I'm like trying to reach out to everyone. So I would say that's how Mars plays the game with me. If you want to know how it interacts in the bedroom, maybe it's a little too TMI for every human listening. I won't say anything too TMI, but for me, like safety in sexual situations is really paramount. Like safety, respect, and also this is like so hard for my husband, but also sometimes I like a little routine every here and there. It's nice because it brings that safety aspect. So yeah, that's how he plays.
I love it. Thank you so much, Julie, for sharing all of that. This whole episode is about sacred rage.
Maybe we can talk about what is sacred rage.
So I was cognitively introduced to the concept of sacred rage about 3 years ago, I think. But my visceral, physical understanding of sacred rage came about probably 8 years ago. So essentially the idea of sacred rage is it's largely connected to this idea of I deserve to exist. And when there is some sort of violation of that, some violation of your right to exist, your right to have needs, the natural response is rage. And it's a very physical, visceral, primal thing. And especially in women, it has been labeled as, no, we don't do that. That's bad. Like, it's bad to be angry. It's bad to feel rage. And when we see women who are exhibiting lots of it, they tend to get ridiculed or labeled as crazy. And here's the thing. And I say women, but it happens to men to a certain extent as well, and people who don't necessarily identify in those binaries. But women in particular have received a lot of conditioning throughout their lives that they need to be kind and considerate and not take up too much space and calm and put others' needs before theirs. And all of those are things that bottle up Mars energy. All of those are things that make it so that when we show up in a trauma response called fawning, where we're like, I'm trying to appease the threat and make it like me, women particularly get rewarded for that. And so then we stay in that. And then we let people violate us in lots of different ways. We allow ourselves to be sexually violated. We allow ourselves to be emotionally violated. We allow ourselves to be mentally violated. So many different forms of violation. And some of them are really small, like not allowing ourselves to show up as we really are with the people around us because we want to make them happy and comfortable, to having sex when we don't want to have sex because we think we have to. It's all kinds of different things. But that sacred rage, that, hey, I deserve to exist kind of energy, that's a life force energy. And every time we tell ourselves, you're not allowed to be angry, you're not allowed to feel upset about what just happened, we tell ourselves we don't deserve to exist because we feel that rage for a reason. It's sending us a message. It's saying, hey, something wasn't quite right with that scenario. And it doesn't mean you have to lash out at the other person. It means you have an opportunity to go within and say, hey, what exactly happened here that was a violation for me? And what do I need to do about it? Do I need to tell this person, hey, what you did really hurt me? Do I need to change jobs? Do I need to go eat some food instead of ignoring my body? Sacred rage at its most simple is your very being saying, hey, I get to be here, and something happened that says I don't. Let's at least acknowledge it, even if we don't have to do something about it to make it better. Because I think a lot of women are afraid to tap into their rage because they're afraid they're going to lose control and hurt somebody. But it's been my observation that for the most part, any woman who's concerned about doing that isn't actually going to end up doing that. They're not going to severely damage people in their rage. They're going to channel it in a way that is cathartic and transformative rather than just wantonly destructive. I went off on like a big old tangent soapbox thing just then. Is there anything either of you want to add?
Yeah, there's a difference between rage and indignance. And I think that we sometimes get, when we feel like we are finally able to like express anger, we instead of expressing anger, we express indignance as like, well, there's a conclusion, so it's better, right? I've decided that this is why it's happening, and I'm angry that this is happening, and I'm entitled now to say you're wrong, and I got angry and you're wrong, and that's indignance. There's no need for a conclusion. Anger and rage can just exist and be expressed, but it doesn't need to be necessarily directed at anybody, and it doesn't need to be a conclusion because it's a piece of information. It is not in itself an end to a mean, and it's not a conclusion. Emotions are energy in motion. They're meant to be moved. They're meant to be transformed and transmuted and eventually released from the body, right? But they're not supposed to be suppressed. When we stuff it and we push it into a corner and say like, no, I can't even express it, we're actually stopping the flow pattern of the natural order of things. When we also obsess over it and say, well, this shouldn't have happened, and I'm angry about it, and this should never have happened, then we're actually creating a loop of anger. That's not good for us either. So just be mindful of, is this anger? Anger is supposed to be a fire, a flash in the pan, and eventually the driving force will transform as well. So you might be angry about one aspect of a conversation, then a different aspect of a conversation. But if you're going in a circle around the same thing over and over again, you've got a different emotion going on here. Those are my soapbox things.
Yeah, well, anger is a secondary emotion often, right? There's something underneath the anger, usually fear, sadness, this feelings of deep abandonment,
Grief
whatever it
the
is.
most common one. I'm sorry to jump in, but the grief is the biggest one. is that I've seen is the original emotion is unprocessed grief, and then we're going to have anger about it, and then we get resentment.
And
And
that's
it's
why we have
huge.
so many angry, angry, angry men, because they have been culturally conditioned that their grief is unacceptable.
Yes.
And so then they don't process the grief, and then they get the rage and the anger. And on the other side of that, we have women who've been told you're not allowed to be angry. You can be sad all you want, but you don't get to be angry. And then we have women getting steamrollered because they are not tapping into that inner flame of I deserve to exist. And men are not allowed to grieve. And so they have to fight and feel the sense of like, I must prove that I get to exist because I'm not allowed to be a full person because I'm not allowed to grieve. And then we get all kinds of problems.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree. And it's so interesting because part of the reason, this grief that they're not processing is being channeled into anger is exactly like you said, that anger is acceptable for men, but not acceptable for women. And so we do this acceptable piece. And that's not to say, and I think this goes along with what everyone is saying, it's not to say that you're made to be angry all the time. Right? No human's made to be angry 24/7. And we do have that too. Like I know people personally who anger is the default emotion, right? Like the default emotion, men and women, right? Can come up, and that fire is a protective fire. And I think we need to see that fire for what it is. It's protecting you, right? Because anger is the secondary emotion. It's trying to protect you, exactly like what Kaylee said. It's trying to protect your life force and what's happening to you. I just want to repeat that, this can be scary. This can be very scary. It can be very scary to tap into rage because we have all seen what happens when rage is unchecked or when violence is unchecked. And we conflate rage with violence, and that rage is going to end up in violence and that rage will become violence. But there is such a thing as rage being sacred, as protecting your life force and that part of you. And you deserve to be able to feel that rage and to deal with that rage. And so there are lots of different practices that you can do this in safe ways. There are safe ways to be angry and rageful. My more recent story was I had actually been thinking a lot about what Kaylee had told me. We had done a shadow work session together over I don't know, this was months back in the early fall. And I kept thinking, she was like, I think you need to let out that anger. And she gave me some ideas. And so finally one day, because I've been doing this practice, this is me, all the taboo up in here we go. But I have been doing this practice where I have been sitting in front of my mirror naked, doing this for a whole 60 days. I've been tapping on loving my body. And one of those days, I had this transformational experience. I was doing it. I was thinking about what Kaylee had said. And all of a sudden, I was like, all right, it's time. It's time to let the rage out and do the anger thing and turn into a dragon. And I did. Like there in my bedroom, I turned into the dragon. No one was there. Like my kids weren't there. The door was locked. It was a very scary experience at first. I kept thinking, like, even though there's no one could see me, there was like not a possible way for someone to see me. I was like, someone's going to see me. Someone's going to see me. And I was very scared to let out this rage, especially because honestly, I was still naked. Okay. Still naked. So I was like, okay, I need to do this. So I got pillows. I let myself focus on, because sometimes it can be helpful if it's hard for you to be angry, it can be helpful to channel it into some kind of container. Like for me, pretending to be a dragon or embodying the energy of a dragon was helpful for me in my rage, to channel that energy of rage. And so I was like, okay, what would a dragon do if it was angry? Like, what would it do? So I got pillows. I banged out the pillows and I screamed and I rammed on my bed. Like I did all the things. Like I got really angry. I just imagined myself blowing fire and being the dragon. And I just started, after doing it, it felt so good. I cannot, ecstasy level good. This was so amazing to let out this rage. And then when I was done being this dragon, I just laughed. I just laughed and laughed because the emotion like alchemized into this like glorious happiness, and relief. And my body was like, thank you. Thank you for letting all that out. Like, we've been holding on to that for probably 9-10 years. Please, like, let it go. And so that was one of my deeper experiences with sacred rage, but it can work. It sounds silly. And I share it because it is very deep and tender, and just letting people know, like, you can do the deep, tender thing and it's safe. And we're here doing it with you. And you can find a space that's safe for you to channel your sacred rage, and it will alchemize. It can alchemize into happiness. It can alchemize into relief and love and all the good emotions and endorphins and dopamine. It can alchemize into all the things. So those are my thoughts. I would love to hear both of your thoughts about how to do this safely and your own experiences.
I love that you shared all of that, Julie. Thank you. That is such a powerful experience. So, in my experience with sacred rage, it does help to put some sort of parameter around the experience. Like, you locked a door and decided, I'm going to embody the energy of a dragon. So, for people listening, if you're like, how the heck do I tap into this and have it not run away with me? Pick some simple thing to do, put some parameters around it, and within those parameters, just let it go. So, you could go for a drive out to some quiet place and just scream in your car. And just scream and scream and scream until you're done screaming. You can stand next to a wall in some room in your house and push against it, and just push and push and push and push until you cry or you laugh or you feel whatever you feel. You can also push your hands against the tops of your thighs. Like, if you're sitting down, place your palms on the top of your thighs and just press down. Not enough to hurt yourself, but enough to activate the muscles of your arms and your legs and your abdomen as well. And just feel that energy, feel that burning almost, feel that intensity start to build. And that is a really great thing to do if you're like, I don't feel angry, I don't know where it is. Do that, and it can help you start connecting with that life force energy that then can connect you to that sacred rage. As I tip over my mic, Jayanne, was there anything that you wanted to add right now? Wait, you were busy. Sorry.
Sorry, I was troubleshooting the printer while we were doing this. What are we gonna do?
Sorry about that. Bad timing on my part.
Not a problem. I love everything you said, though, both of you. So great. Those are really practical things. On a personal side, yeah, I will scream at God because I know God can take it. And all the obscenities, yeah, I have no holds barred about specific language. I don't think that cuss words are evil or bad or wrong inherently. I think that they are actually inappropriately twisted common people words to make regular people feel bad about themselves and the way they speak. But that's my 2 cents on that. But I find them to be extremely cathartic, mostly because of the way the consonants run, right? Like, that's part of why they are so cathartic in a visceral sense. And it's also because they're taboo, right? Because saying duck cake isn't the same thing, but it's close. But it's really funny was just a few minutes ago when I was talking, my husband walked by and he heard me say, some things about rage and anger. And he was like, oh, we're talking about anger and rage. This is very exciting for me. And so he told me to tell you guys that he's a resident expert on anger and rage. And just like what Julie said, is I do not confound violence and rage because he's not violent, but he is rageful and he loves his rage. He finds it to be a powerful source of power, of motivation, right? That's what Mars is for. Not to mention, he's a triple fire, so we got that going for us. So it's definitely there, but it was literally like right before you guys were like, and men are so like openly available to their anger and rage. And he's like standing there telling me, rage is awesome. So this is for everybody here. Like, rage is awesome. It is good. It is not necessarily violent. And that's the difference between emotion and action. Completely different. Anyways, so yes, I will, like Kaylee said, a container is great. Cars are a great container. The pantry is a great container for your sacred rage. The garage can be a great space. The bathroom. It's just like to scream and scream and scream and tell God that he's stupid and has made some really bad decisions. God can handle that. I've yelled at ancestors. I've yelled at other beings that are not embodied. I've also yelled at the spiritual version of real people, right? That can all be a great way to get your message across without damaging your relationship in real time, because you may say some things you don't really mean, but you need to say them. You just don't need to say them to their person. You maybe just need to say them to their spiritual energy, and they might get the message. That might be enough.
Writing things down can also be really helpful. Writing letters, tearing them up, burning things. A lot of people use sticks, like going into a space, like maybe your garage or whatever, and like pounding a stick on the ground or hitting a stick against rocks or whatever it is out in nature. There's something that our primal energy likes about working with the earth in those ways, or working with the elements in a physical way that allow us to let go of that rage. And so, if you're at a place and no one is around, like, you can throw rocks into the river. It can be a great way to get rid of your rage, throwing rocks into the river or jumping on things or exercise. Those are all really helpful. Punching bags can be great, or using a stick with the punching bag. But yeah, I think, having that container, and you don't have to do this. If you're in the moment and you're just feeling it, just do it. But you could also consecrate that experience if you want to, right? Like, if you want to purge it and make it deeply sacred, you can consecrate that experience and make it a sacred thing. And just by saying, okay, I'm allowing my sacred rage to come out now. I'm honoring my body. I'm honoring, my spirit while I do this. And like, let's go punch some bags right now, right? Like, let's go punch something and let it out. So yeah, thank you for all those suggestions too. And I wanted to ask you ladies if you've had any other like meaningful experiences with sacred rage where it helped like change you, enliven you, or help your life.
I just wanted to say really quickly though, rage cleaning is a thing. That's one thing you can do with your rage. You can funnel it into something that you want to accomplish. It doesn't mean you have to break things while you're cleaning. It just means rage is just this aliveness. Honestly, that's what it is. And if you funnel that aliveness into some productive thing, cool. That sounds awesome. My best cleaning actually gets accomplished when I am ticked off. But so I mentioned that I had my first visceral experience with sacred rage about 8 years ago. And so for anyone who comes from a background where you've been told over and over again, anger is not okay. It's not okay to be mad at people. Like, that's bad. That's sinful. Or that's whatever negative label you want to put on it. The emotion is not bad. What you do or do not decide to do with it could be considered good or bad, depending on what your values are. But that was something that I really struggled with when I was younger, was just this idea of you're not allowed to be angry. And so I let myself self-betray a lot in an attempt to people please, because I couldn't be angry. I had to consider their point of view more than my own point of view. And so I learned to discount my own needs and my own reality. And it led to a situation in my early marriage where my husband was lying and hiding some very significantly painful things and a lot of deception. But I also was deceiving myself in that I was denying my own intuition. I was denying my reality. I was not allowing myself to be angry about the things that I knew my husband was doing for those things that I knew he was doing. And I, in some ways, lost myself. It was like I didn't really know who I was anymore. It was not great. And it was really painful to experience. And finally, everything came to a head, and my husband finally divulged everything that he had been hiding from me. And my first response wasn't, my gosh, how could you have done that to me? It was, my gosh, now how do I make this all okay? And it's like, oh my heck, what has happened to me? I have been significantly violated. And my first thought is, how do I make this all okay? Not just me okay, but us okay and him okay? There is something wrong here. And I had a mentor who was like, yeah, something is wrong here. You have completely lost yourself. And so I actually kicked my husband out of our apartment so that I could find myself again and figure out okay, you go heal your stuff if you're going to, and I'm going to heal my stuff. But I had to tap into that anger before I even had the strength to say, hey, you have to go. I had to remember that I mattered and that my needs mattered just as much as my husband's, and that if he hurt me, I was allowed to be upset about it, not just sad, but furious about it. And in this process, I also learned Jan said that God can take whatever I throw. And for the first time in my life, I raged at God, absolutely raged. And I wasn't struck down, and God didn't leave me alone. I was held and comforted. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that I was being emotionally honest, and that was what God wanted from me in the first place, was my emotional honesty, because he can do something with that. He and she, from my perspective, they can do something with that. But part of this process of tapping into that rage and that recognition that I mattered too, it wasn't just my husband who mattered, but I mattered as well. I had to destroy something. And I actually took something that was symbolic of our marriage and I put it in a box and I destroyed it. I set fire to it. I stabbed it with a knife, like just completely destroyed it. And I funneled all the pain and all the rage that I could possibly muster into that process. And even the hatred. At that point in time, I hated my husband, hated him. And I funneled it all into this destructive box in my apartment. And later on, when I was out of the apartment, my husband came to the apartment to pick up some stuff of his. And I knew he was doing that. And he found the box. And he said later on, after we had both healed a ton and reconciled, and our relationship is wonderful now. So if anybody listening, like we're in a totally different place now. But he saw that box and he said that for the first time, it dawned on him just how deeply he had hurt me. That got through to him more than anything else that we had gone through up to that point. And I genuinely believe that rage experience was a turning point, not just for me, but also for him. And so I have found rage to be a valuable part of my shedding codependency and recognizing that I matter and that I'm important, when I had spent so many years essentially sending myself the message that I didn't deserve to take up space. And so if you find yourself in a position like that where you don't really know who you are, or you don't really feel like you're as important as other people, rage might be exactly what you need to tap into.
Yeah. And I also just wanted to drop in there. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kaylee. And sorry to interrupt you. Jan, I saw you reaching. But thank you for sharing that like deep, sacred part of your marriage with us and like showing the whole cycle how rage actually can help be healing. It can help heal things and it can heal relationships and it can heal you. And for anyone who's like sitting there and feeling like, how could I can't curse God. That's like evil. How could I ever say angry things to God? Have you read the Psalms lately? Because you should, because all of the Psalms, right? Like there's so many Psalms that are, they're cursing God. They're saying all these things. God, how could you do this to me? How could this happen? And being real. And so I think what Kaylee said is really very important, and what Jan said, right? God can take it and God wants you to be emotionally honest. And you, like your real eternal soul, your eternal being wants you to be honest with yourself. And that's why we get trapped, because we're not being honest with ourselves. I just wanted to point that out, but thank you for sharing that, Kaylee.
I think this is such a really powerful example of the power of the feminine. When the feminine expresses emotion, purely expresses it, right? Like you didn't burn that to hurt him. You burned him because you were experiencing that and you were living that experience, and he happened to find it, which to me is like he got the feedback without you being like, you're expletive. Right? Because that's the masculine feminine dynamic, is the feminine has to express the feedback and the masculine has to receive the feedback, the emotional feedback, the presence. And if we don't express the feedback, we're trying to hold back because it's, quote, the right thing to do. They're missing out on important information that is not being taken into consideration. Absolutely. This is vital to that masculine feminine balance. And when we hold back, we're stopping the flow loop. It can't go in a circle if we cut it off at the rage. We just can't. And it was really funny too. I was like thinking like, oh, rage, try rage. Are you tired? Are you whatever? Try rage, because it's a delightful treat. I don't know. It's the newest medication from your life.
Very, very true.
It's so real. It's so real. I had a question and it left and so that's fine.
Is it about connecting with the feminine, rage with the feminine? I think you did that beautifully just now, but
Thank you. I think I was going to ask a question about that, and then I answered my own question without even asking you. So whatever. What
Nicely
are
done.
some wonderful ways that what are some important signs that we're having rage and we don't even know it? Because I think that is such like a deep piece of it, is that I'm angry, like getting to the point where we even know that we're angry. That's step one.
Yeah. And I would like to emphasize, right, like exactly what you said before that, when, feeling rage and emotion is part of the feminine. And if you are distorting that, if you are not, because I do want to say the false feminine that we have is this idea of like, keep sweet, never say anything mean, be like always be, and I am not saying we should not be kind. Every person should be kind and should communicate clearly, and we should do things in the best manner. Advocating for, like we said at the top, like we're not advocating for violence. Rage and violence are different, but I do think part of the reason so many women are rejecting femininity in general is because of all this pent up rage, and because they feel like that femininity is not feeling any other emotions except happiness, and this, like, I don't know, feeble view of the feminine. And it's not, right? It's not. Rage is just as much a part of the feminine as any other emotion is, and expressing that emotion is really important. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Jan.
Oh, you just reminded me of something really important.
Yeah, go ahead.
This experience. So I used to sell insurance, right? Blah, blah, blah. I had to like go out to like different networking events, like make friends and be like, blah, blah, blah. Well, I was in this group where you're supposed to share leads with each other. If the mortgage guy gets a new person, he's going to send you a referral, right? So my mortgage guy wouldn't give me the time of day, would not talk to me. I would try to set up meetings with him. He did not give a crap. And he was supposed to be the guy that was feeding me business. And I was in this like women's networking group. And one of the things we were supposed to do was talk about a problem you're having with your business. And I was like, I'm really angry that this guy will not even give me the time of day. Like, why am I even in this group if this guy won't even give me the time of day? And this woman later pulled me aside and was like, that was inappropriate. Yeah, you can't see this, but they are making very shocked faces right now. It's delightful because she was older and she was wealthy and she had this very old, very specific version in her mind of what the feminine was supposed to look like. And she even went as far to tell me, I can't manifest anything if I'm going to not to experience rage like that. And I was like, you are not my teacher. First of all, you will not say these things. I'm done. We're like, I'm never talking to this lady again, clearly. But I use this as like an important highlight to say, this is the sneaky undertone that I think that we're operating from, is some older lady's going to come up to me and be like, no. And I'm in the know. I know the word manifestation. So I'm going to tell you, rage does not create manifestation. You got to stay in the high vibes. And I'm like, no, dude, accessing rage has been one of the most powerful manifestors in my life because I'm no longer blocking an energy that needs to be flowing forward. Right? When I have those moments that I scream at God and tell him he's really stupid and bad and wrong with bad words, guess what? I get a new client. Okay, there is something really important here. There's something really important to expressing that rage, that when we clear out those things, then we create space for new things that we actually want instead of holding on to all this like stagnant, soul burning rage. There's a reason we're all uncomfortable all the time, right? And this is one of them.
If you don't want to feel angry, the solution isn't to suppress it. The solution is to actually feel it. And that's true of any emotion. Because the more we suppress it, or the more we try to pretend, oh no, I'm not an angry person. No, I'm not. Yeah, you are. You're boiling with rage underneath all these layers of correctness. You're a human being. You experience emotions. And if you do not feel them, they will build and they will fester and they will come out in ugly ways, way more ugly than if you just felt it in the first place. And this is especially true with rage. So yeah, like whatever symbolic little old lady is in your head telling you, no, that's inappropriate. No, she's inappropriate. You need to feel what you honestly feel. It doesn't mean you go punch someone in the face. It means you feel. You don't have to do a thing about it. You just feel it and witness it and let it go.
Yeah.
And
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah. And I think this really is the old paradigm we're bumping up against, right? Is there is, and even around spirituality and manifestation and all of that kind of stuff, it was exactly what Jan said, only feel good vibes, only positive thoughts. The secret, right? The secret is only think the good things and it'll only bring the good things. But no, that's actually not the secret. The secret is you feel it and you let it go, and then the things come to you. And that's why there's so much more neural manifestation and so much science behind this of allowing these emotions to flow through you so you can make the new neural pathways that allow you to manifest and bring into your life what you want. And I also wanted to touch on what Kaylee was just saying too about the you need to feel it part, because I think people are like, I don't know how to do that. I have no idea how to do the feeling in my body thing. Like, it's not, that's not computing in my brain. And I will say, I want Kaylee to speak to this too, because she is a somatic practitioner and has so much knowledge here. But I will say, from my perspective and limited experience, I am a Cancer though, got lots of feelings. So I will say that. And a reflector. So I have every other person in the world's feelings inside of me also. But I would say, like, the first step for me, like actually doing an action can help you get into your body and feel the feelings in your body. What we talked about, like starting, even if you don't feel like screaming, like starting the scream can help you, or like banging on the pillow can be helpful to actually get it in your body and to sit with it and like feel the tingles. Like when I was having that experience where I was the dragon, I felt tingles all up and down my body, right? I could feel the tingling. I could feel the fire inside me. I could feel and focusing on what your body is doing, right? Like I could feel my muscles tense up and I could feel like a warmth spread all through me, right? Those things can help us to understand what we're feeling. But what are your thoughts on that, Kaylee? Like, how do you actually feel it?
That's a great question. And so many of us are so in the habit of not feeling. We conceptualize our emotions, we think them, and we think that we're feeling them, but we're just thinking them because it seems safer than actually feeling them. But what seems to be a really wonderful doorway to actually feeling our emotions and being with them is first learning to be with other physical sensations that come from your five senses. And so, as simple as it sounds, going outside every day for a minute, 5 minutes, like you can even set a timer and focus for the entirety of that time on noticing how the sunlight feels on your skin, noticing if there's a breeze, hearing the birds. And if you think thoughts about what you're experiencing, that's okay. But just bringing your attention back to, like, where am I feeling this in my body? And what's the quality of this? Is it warm? Is it tingly? Is it prickly? And just noticing the quality of sound, noticing if you smell something, getting comfortable with reconnecting with your five senses is this gateway into then noticing what sensations are happening on the inside. Because our emotional experiences, they're physical. Like, yes, they're chemical, but they're also kind of mechanical. They're in your body. And so if you can't get in your body yet, go to the surface where your body interfaces with the external world and start noticing how that feels. And it will get easier.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Kaylee, for that. That's such an important tutorial on, like, honestly, any emotion. That's a great way to start. If you are struggling to know what it is you're even feeling, start by just feeling something. Because most of us are walking around thinking that we are a brain supported by this stick figure, right? And getting more and more into our bodies and feeling our skin, feeling the difference between feeling and thinking about feeling, seeing and thinking about seeing. That is the difference between anxiety and feeling real. And those are the big changes that happen. So yes, that is like step one to any emotion, but really true for anger and rage and any other emotions that you haven't been letting yourself feel for a very long time. Beautiful. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was wondering if we should go back to, because we never answered the question, and I guess it's not very fair if someone wanted to hear it, which was you had asked about what are some signs you might need to release sacred rage, right? Wasn't that the question you had asked?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
You can go first.
Yeah, sometimes I think that just anxiety in general, particularly anxiety in women, is actually just secret rage. Anxiety is emotional inflammation. So if we are feeling like there's a lack of safety somewhere, there's usually a rage component. There's usually an anger component. Sometimes you might cry and you don't know why, because it feels safer to express sadness or tears rather than actual rage. And let's see what else. Feeling disembodied is probably another one where it's like I think about my body, I can think about my emotions from a conceptualization standpoint, like Kaylee was saying, but not necessarily feeling anything in my body or feeling my emotions. Yeah, I think those are probably a good jumping off point from my standpoint. What about you guys?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you just said. I would also say that if somebody is experiencing a lot of resentment, that they have a lot of anger they've not allowed themselves to fully feel. And they may think that they have because they might sometimes be kind of angry at people in their resentment, but the resentment definitely indicates that there is some sort of at least perceived boundary violation and there's some sort of anger that still needs to be processed. I would also say that if you are very disconnected from your sexuality and struggle to enjoy either sensual experiences or sexual experiences, because they're not the same thing, that you probably have some rage stuff going on as well, because rage is very connected with eros, because they're all a life force energy. They're all part of that creative energy that is a part of, or that is intended to be a part of sex. And it's not necessarily like creation of children that I'm referring to, though that's a part of it. Creative energy, period, is very connected to sexuality, to even that rage. Because like when I shared my experience, that kind of like symbolic burning down of my relationship then provided fertile soil for a newer, healthier relationship to spring forth. And so yeah, if you feel very sexually frozen, it may not be the whole story, but there may be a component of you are not allowing yourself to feel rage. You're not allowing yourself to claim space and say, I deserve to exist, which is exactly what that rage is trying so hard to get you to really believe.
I was also going to say, if you're backbiting a lot, like if you are back talking or talking behind people's backs for some reason, and it just keeps coming up, then that can be a sign like you haven't let yourself let go of it. Rumination is another sign. If you keep thinking about something and thinking about something, then you haven't fully felt it or expressed it. And I think also, even Jan talked about this a little bit, but even like numbness, like feeling numb. If you feel like you constantly have to be on your phone, then that's a sign too. Like if you can't get away from technology without feeling anxiety or fear, then that's probably you aren't allowing yourself to truly feel. And anger is probably a portion of that. There's probably other emotions also, but I would say anger is probably a portion of that. And also, I want to add, if you are constantly angry with the masculine, I think like if there are constantly men in your life who are doing things that you dislike or that are hurting you, then maybe there's some sacred rage that needs to take forth, because that means like your boundaries are being violated over and over again, and you haven't put up those strong boundaries to do that. And Mars has to do with men, and so yeah, it may be that you have some tug of war with especially male figures in your life. So those were some other ones I thought about.
One thing that I wanted to bring up here, because Kaylee said something really important, like everything is great. Everything is so great. The resentment thing, this is just like my fun little tidbit, but in Chinese medicine, anger is processed by the liver, right? And resentment is processed by the gallbladder. So I think it's really funny that the liver makes the bile and the gallbladder stores it. Well, the liver makes the anger, processes the anger. And if we don't process the anger, we're going to store anger. Stored anger is resentment. It's a slow burn, and it's eternal, right? Not eternal, but it's a long burn. And what I find is that a lot of people who have grief processing issues or anger processing issues do not have gallbladder.
And there are so many more people having their gallbladders removed or having issues with their gallbladder. I know so many people, myself included, who've had issues. Yeah, I think it does come back to like, we haven't processed our anger or we haven't processed our grief. And then we've got that resentment, and our bodies are trying so hard to communicate with us. And not all of us have had the tools to be able to realize what our bodies were saying.
Yeah, sickness can be a really big indicator. Whatever's going on with your body can be a huge indicator about what you need to feel and not feel. So if you are having gallbladder, liver issues, I would say even lung issues, because lung can be part of that grief fear cycle, that might be something to really look into. Even noting like if there's stuff going on your skin around those areas too, you might want to look into that, letting go of anger.
I also would say waking up between the hours of 11 and 1 and 3 to 5. So if you have those issues of like waking up in the middle of the night and you're thinking too much, that's usually somewhere in the liver, and the anger piece is right behind it. So that's what my whole sleep course was based on. If you're thinking too much in the middle of the night, you probably just have secret anger. What is one thing you guys want to leave with everybody today as we talk about Mars, as we talk about anger, the right to live, the right to survive, I am here, all of those concepts? What is it that you feel like people need to know?
I just want to reiterate that no emotions are truly bad. No emotions are wrong. We're intended to feel the full range of emotion at some point in our lives, and probably many times in our lives. I tell my kids fairly frequently, especially my kids with Scorpio moons, feel the emotion, don't feed it. You don't have to use your thoughts to make an emotion last longer than it needs to. Just be with the emotion. Don't tell a story about it. Don't say it's wrong. Don't say you shouldn't have it. You don't even need to say you're justified in having it. Just experience it. And then it processes and it goes and it leaves you better than it found you. Even those emotions that we've collectively tended to label as bad or negative or lower vibration.
100% agree. And I've loved everything both of you have said today too. Just reiterating, this has been a magical, I'm like, this is my favorite episode we've done. I want to say though, as well, that if you are looking, if you maybe are like, oh, I have some of these symptoms and I want to feel things, I'm a little scared about it. I don't know where I'm feeling those things. Maybe connecting to Mars is a good place to start for you. Look at where you've got it in your birth chart. If you don't know, you can go, there are tons of websites that will for free show you where you've got Mars, tell you where you've got Mars. It's easy to calculate. You can come to any of these ladies here and myself and ask them, and they will help you. You can look up stuff, but connect to Mars and help you. And of course, I also have to give a shout out to Black Moon Lilith as well, especially because we're women. We've talked about this before, but Black Moon Lilith is another really great place to start. Figure out what house it's in and what sign it's in, both of these planets. Figure out what house and sign they're in. And the themes of those houses and those signs are maybe the places you're storing your rage. And maybe where you can start with your rage. And just know, exactly like what Kaylee said, just feel it. It's okay to feel it. Just start small. That going outside for that 1 minute, 30 seconds, like just notice stuff in your life. How does the water running on your hands when you wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, how does that feel? How does it feel when you're cooking in the morning and maybe you've burnt your hand, or maybe you're flipping the pancake, whatever you're doing, like how does that motion feel in your body? Do one small thing to connect with your body. Maybe just put your hands over your heart and breathe for a second and feel like, what does it feel like to be inside of me? And allow yourself to have all those emotions and know that they are good. They are good and they are okay. And you can let them all go. And just that you're meant to be here. You're meant to be here. You deserve to be here. And you have every right to take hold of this beautiful energy.
Wonderfully said. I love it. My one thing is a little bit short and sweet and sort of feels disconnected, but I'll tell you why. No is the complete sentence. Anything beyond no is likely an attempt to justify your anger. And so instead of trying to justify it, just experience it. That's all I got to say about that. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And I hope you guys enjoyed this much as we did. It was so much fun to talk about anger and rage. So thanks again for listening and have a great week. See you next time. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week.